Okay, can people hear me?
Well, so Jackie is going to do a little introduction, Christine, and I'll share the agenda here so everybody can see that, and then you can go ahead and share.
Okay, so how do I unshare? Do I just?
I think I can do that.
Oh,
There we go.
That's nice.
Okay.
Jackie's muted.
There you go.
Okay, now are we set? Okay. Okay, so before, I'm Jackie Brewer, and I'm a member of Communities United for Action, and I'm on the sewer justice team. I want to give you an example of why I'm involved and interested in this event. I reside in Rockford Woods development in Northside, and the development owns a detention basin, and I have property on Spring Lawn that has a combined sewer overflow running through the middle of it. And I have family that lives on that property. So I care about stormwater management, not just because of property, but because it affects my life and my family's lives. And Communities United for Action is developing a series to learn more about who's responsible for stormwater management. I mean, I guess the weather is responsible for, the rain is responsible for stormwater, but how do we manage it? And as the rains increase with climate change, we think it's a good time now to learn more about what we're dealing with and how flooding and overflows and backups can be managed. We're learning, and we hope everybody can learn along with us. Some housekeeping items are that Noelle Beyer will be our timekeeper, and she's, can you say hi, Noelle? Well, she's muted. And Allison is going to be monitoring the chat for audience questions.
Hello.
So you'll see the agenda on the screen if you're on Zoom. We have developed initial questions for our guests to address. And if you have any additional questions, we want to hear them. If we have time after each speaker, we'll try to get to a few questions. And if not, then you can see that we allotted 30 minutes at the end of the agenda for more questions. You can use the chat feature on Zoom to put in questions as speakers are talking. But please stay muted during the presentations to minimize background noise and distraction. The microphone button will mute and unmute you if you're on Zoom. If you're on a phone without a mute button, *6 will mute and unmute you. So I think we're ready. I think that's all the housekeeping things. So I want to introduce Florence Miller, a fellow CUFA member working for Sewer Justice. And Florence, you can take it away.
Okay. I am Florence Miller, and I live in East Clifton, and I'm also a member of Communities United for Action. I'm interested in stormwater management because on August 28th, 2016, my basement, attached garage, and backyard were inundated with stormwater and raw sewage. The basin behind my backyard property was filled and overflowing with stormwater above 9 feet. That stormwater rose above the hood of my car parked in my parking pad. The stormwater entered and exited the combined stormwater and sanitary sewers along Vine Street, south of Mitchell Avenue, blowing off the sewer lids and the sewer grates due to the force of the stormwater and the incapacity of the sewer lines. Needless to say, I lost my car, personal and real property, to more than $19,000. Also, many of you have had an experience like mine. So I am introducing Christine Urban and Michael Sedlacek, and sorry if I mispronounce your name, from Region 5 of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, who will be educating us about stormwater management and answer the few questions which I will now read. Who is responsible for stormwater issues? That is, are there other entities that are responsible, like ODOT? Who is responsible for stormwater management? How do the stormwater management utilities and sewer districts work together? How is stormwater management coordinated between watersheds? Is it effective? What have other counties, cities done to successfully handle sewer consent decrees that integrate stormwater management? And with that, Christine and Michael, you're up for educating us. So thanks very much for being here.
Hey, okay. Can people see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, so here's just starting out with just a picture of a urban wet weather area. A lot of things going on in this. And I'm going to talk a little bit first to kind of define what EPA's role is. And also give, we have a couple primary programs that we use to deal with stormwater that are regulatory. We also, and those would be the ones that usually apply to an urban area like Cincinnati. So I'm going to try to go through the both of these presentations that I have very quickly. So I do want to thank our stormwater coordinator, Krista McKim, and John McGowan for helping. And also Mike Sedlacek, he should be online. And I told him to jump in if my Wi-Fi gets testy with me and throws me off the system. So hopefully if he can, I sent the information to him. So, okay. So I think we all know what stormwater is, but the federal government has a definition because of the regulatory angle, and people will, sometimes dispute that, but it's runoffs from stormwater, snow melt, and surface runoff and drainage. And generally it's over land, or in most cases, impervious surfaces when you have a lot of paved streets, parking lots, and rooftops, and it doesn't soak into the ground, which is what it would normally do if it was a natural system. EPA oversees a program called the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, and that's it regulates stormwater discharges from municipal systems, and we call them MS4, municipally separate stormwater systems, construction activities, and industrial activities. And I put a star here. All of these are found in the Code of Regulations of Federal Regulations. Takes a while to go through that, so I'm just going to put a star there if anybody wants to look that up. So why is stormwater runoff a problem? I think we all know, but nationally, if you want to know kind of how it stands, there's 35,000 roughly miles of impaired rivers and streams, and that's out of the ones that are assessed. When the state does the assessments, they don't do all of the waters. There are a lot of waters. So that's out of the ones that have been tested and assessed. Roughly 1.4 million acres of impaired lakes, which is about 18%, and 5,000 square miles of impaired estuaries. So see, it's not for a problem in Cincinnati alone. And it's a leading source of impairments in our rivers and lakes. The development in urban areas, as you know, is the water does not infiltrate. So the volume and velocity of stormwater and the lack of infiltration can cause a lot of issues. It can decrease the groundwater recharge. So the water is moving fast off the properties and it has additional power, and it will do some of the things that you've been talking about, that too much water in the wrong place at the wrong time, carrying pollutants with it. And sometimes the system can't handle it. Pollutants in stormwater runoff can lead to beach closures, illnesses with swimming, fishery and shellfish harvest impacts from sedimentation, nutrients and metals that impact the fish, drinking water treatment costs, and other impacts. So we look at two different aspects of this. We look at water quality, and so you can carry the pollutants, and that is, EPA is a very big with pollutants. Water quantity is something that we don't, regulating the water quantity is more difficult. I work in a program where we actually try to just figure out how much pollution should be reduced to bring a water body back to health. And if sometimes there are things like temperature that are difficult to kind of the problems are more complex. So the quantity impacts are the increased runoff, changes to the stream, physical stream bed, and disturbance of the aquatic habitat. And it can lead to impaired value or loss of use. And we consider like fishable, swimmable, drinking water as uses for the water. So, so our responsibilities generally are on a national level, pretty high level. So we develop the regulations, and in accordance with the Clean Water Act, we engage the public in that, and then Ohio EPA, our program has been delegated to Ohio EPA. So they're the implementer of the MS4 program or the stormwater program in the state of Ohio. We maintain oversight role over the state's permitting and enforcement programs. Generally, many of the states, we try to work in partnership with them. We try to further the science, and also do pilot projects and things to help show the states and to show individuals, teach them what they can do individually. So we're backing up the states in that way as well, but we do have direct enforcement in NPDES programs. But generally the state, it gets to a point before we would step in generally, and we try to work cooperatively with parties. So types of management include industrial, construction, and municipal. We're probably not going to talk, I don't know if we're going to talk too much about construction or industrial, but those facilities need to have a permit. Many of our states would have a general permit for that, where they would maybe even apply online, and that they have to fill out the permit, and they might have a series of things that they have to do to make sure that their stormwater is not an issue. And that's if they have stormwater that is, basically if their facility is exposed to stormwater. Some cases that wouldn't be the case. So they also would need permit coverage, as well as the municipalities. And a municipal stormwater system, that is kind of mostly what we're talking about, I think, today. We have communities that carry sewage and stormwater in conveyances that are together. So they're carrying the sewage and the stormwater together in their pipes, and they're called combined sewer systems. And EPA requires that discharges be reduced from these or eliminated so that the water cannot adversely be impacted by these discharges. And again, this is made in, this case might be one that EPA might become involved. This is a very complex issue. Many of the larger cities in our region might have some CSOs because of many of these cities are older, and that's how they originally did it. They sent the water through the treatment plant. So a separate sewer system, MS4, is only stormwater, and it's for communities of a certain size, larger ones, and it results in them being regulated as a MS4 sewer storm system. So, okay, I was trying to touch my screen now. So the conveyance, the system of conveyances, that's just municipal streets, gutters, curbs, ditches, man-made channels. It's all defined in the Clean Water Act, or in our regulations actually, which are responsive to the Clean Water Act. And generally these facilities are owned by a state or a village or a public entity. Somebody I think was asking about, what facilities could be a stormwater system or could be regulated. And there are like other public facilities, a stormwater, a system, a separate system, but cannot have combined sewer in it. So MS4 infrastructure can be simple or complex. It can also be open pipes, man-made, and some MS4s carry groundwater or pipe streams or have other constant sources of non-stormwater discharge. And a system which is combined with sewer is not an MS4. So we talked a little bit about the traditional kind that are publicly owned by a municipality. There are also ones, Department of Transportation can also be an MS4, and the state would write a permit separately for them. Airports, universities, federal installations, all which might have a large amount of exposure to stormwater and possible contaminants. So. Okay, so again, typically stormwater management is the duty that falls to the Public Works Department or a similar department. In Cincinnati, there's a stormwater management unit, and that's the link for it. The local ordinances are usually what govern stormwater in municipal code to enforce stormwater management requirements. Many municipalities are creating stormwater utilities to collect user fees from citizens and operate the program. And their job is to educate the government of the city and to educate the public, as well as they can develop rates. Okay, and so EPA's job is pretty, we often don't get down to the local level. Our involvement can be very small in that regard. However, we do sometimes have to enforce permit requirements or consent decree requirements. We compile examples from around the country, like case studies, and we fund pilot projects that encourage involved agencies and organizations to work together towards solutions. And at times we may have some, some role in educating and trying to bring people together. How is it coordinated between watersheds and EPA? We work largely with the state with that, and we work with them on a program called the TMDL program, and we review their assessments of large watersheds, and sometimes before they publish them to the public, and we sometimes provide them with input on how those might be better written or handled in a different way, technically. So, so we do also do large scale watershed studies. We have an Office of Research and Development that does that. Oops, went too far. And this last page is just, it's basically some of our web pages that we have that that are from our MS4 and our NPDES programs that, and some of the outreach that they do and some of the materials that they have that are available Oh, and then there's some information here on Ohio EPA's stormwater program background and some of the webinars that we have on stormwater, so webcasts. And I think some of that can be made available at the end of this program. So that is what I have today for the MS4 program. And thank you very much for your time and attention. And I don't know if they want me to proceed. I am going to talk a little bit about green infrastructure as well.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate. We still have some minutes left, I think.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Great. So let me.
I think we want to hear everything you have to say. You're muted. Oh, there.
Yeah, I thought that we.
Whoop, muted again. It ought to, like, it just did it.
I don't know. You know what I did? I do that, my touchpad, and it remuted it for me. So,
Okay.
Okay. So let's go here. No. There we go. Okay. I've got too many menus on here. They're all trying to get in on the act.
I know I put a question in the chat, so if anyone else has questions, please feel free to, put them in the chat.
Christine, would it help if I stop the sharing for you to do another one or?
Yeah. Okay. Can you see my my screen now?
Yeah.
We see the same one, I think.
You're seeing the same one? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe stop the sharing and then I'll just reshare what I have on my screen right now.
While we're waiting, so is the projects that are related to Northside, the North and Martha Basins, considered MS4 project?
Okay, I think this should be. So you want to know if a particular project is an MS4 project?
Yes.
Okay, so that probably wouldn't be something that I would be aware of, but if you want to do you want to describe the project to me a little bit? Then I might be
On
able to tell you.
Northside, there's two basins that were constructed as part of a sewer separation project.
Mhm.
The North Basin and the Martha Basin. And so, a lot of new pipe was laid to separate, manage to collect the stormwater and separate it from the wastewater.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that would be something, probably, is there, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you that other than to say that generally that if there's like a storm sewer system that's just a sewer system, that doesn't sound like a conveyance to me. It sounds like that sounds like storage to me. And I know that sometimes with CSOs, they do storage. Is it a very large basin?
Yeah, it's like maybe an inch or two away from being considered a dam.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that kind of sounds like it would be part of the CSO structure, but I can't, say for sure just because.
Because I think part of this, whole adventure here today is to find out, who do we call when we need help on it, and so who is the person? If it's an MS4 and there's a person identified, that's great. And if it's a CSO, did you say?
Yeah, CSO, combined sewer
so
overflow.
would there be a person specifically assigned to that?
Yeah, there would be, and they probably, you might start with contacts here locally because they're going to be involved in that and with your public utility.
I feel like we might have already tried that, and that's kind of why we're having a meeting a little bit. And so I just didn't know, how do we find out that information as far as the designation of the project?
Okay. Somebody
I
was,
think
So I
Adam,
could,
being local, might have that information, Noel, because it's a very
Okay.
local project.
well,
So,
I think the next segment that we're doing that I will present will start to touch on those issues.
Great.
I hope.
I will be giving you a lot of information of different people you can.
Yeah, and then Adam will also. So let me just let's start the next segment. We could always come back with questions. We're at time anyway.
yeah, this is, you know, EPA, with the federal EPA, it's a very large umbrella. And then you have the OEPA, which actually, even though it's an EPA, is a state entity. It's not like, you know, a subsidiary of, we all implement the Clean Water Act, and EPA delegates to the state, some state agency, the Clean Water Act programs like the MS4 program. But for instance, in Minnesota, it's called the MPCA. That's the designated, we've delegated the program for the Clean Water Act to the Minnesota PCA. So they're separate, but we're partners and we work together. It's a pretty close federal and state relationship, but the state is still independent, an independent entity. So I don't know if that helps, but
well, maybe
so
we
I'm trying to
can,
set that up. So, you know, to kind of have people understand, yeah, there's a lot of, you know, a lot of cooks at the table, I guess.
so maybe we can learn more about the green infrastructure part. Maybe that'll work at the end when we, maybe those slides will be able to be pulled up and we can,
Okay.
and
Hoping.
we'll see how our questions are going. So thanks, Christine, for coming. And
Can you see the green infrastructure slides now?
oh, well, if we're, you know, oh, there it is.
Yeah, we can either do it now, or if you want to go on, and then we can do it later, and or, you know, see if other people cover this. It's fine either way.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did pop up, which is great, but we are on the time
Okay.
schedule.
Right.
So I think at the end, there is a little bit of, you know, leeway time. Which
Mhm.
definitely
Right.
Okay, this is the one with the picture, so I hope we get to do it, but well, thank
Make room as Noelle is timekeeper. We'll
Yeah.
see how many questions we have at the end. And
okay.
Or
All right, well, thank you.
sort of email, that would be great. We could look at it.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much, everybody.
great. Well, hang on, and we might be able to be back with you. So Ken is next. He's a member of CUFA and a University of Cincinnati professor. So he'll introduce himself and Adam. So
Right. Thank you. And since everyone's kind of saying why they're involved, I'm an ecologist, and I've taken an interest in this water problem, urban water and streams. And I'm trying to get more UC students connected on the science front, but also on my own, taking the initiative to understand the community and what the community is facing. And that's why I'm here today. So I think in partial answer to the question, the way I understand it, and our next guest, I'll introduce in 1 minute, I think he can verify this. The Metropolitan Sewer District is in charge of the combined sewers, right? So they have been charged to address that issue. And they're doing that on behalf of the city and county. The non-combined sewer issues, the stormwater issues, is handled by the Stormwater Management Utility. And I'm going to post in the chat SMU Stormwater Management Utility. And there's a link there that describes a little bit about who they are and what they do. I think that is very relevant, especially in situations where it's commercial or private landowners do something that modifies the stormwater flow. So things that come over land. It does not seem to address issues that arise when public utilities modify the landscape. So that's where there could be a gap. We tried to have someone from Stormwater Management Utility come to this meeting. The scheduling didn't permit it, right? So they've come to meetings like this before, and we plan to have a Stormwater 102 session, hopefully in September, as soon as we can nail down a date. But we expect there will be someone from the Stormwater Management Utility there. And that's a helpful web page to see what's in their domain, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see what is in whose domain. And our next guest is Adam Lehman. He works for Hamilton County Soil and Water. And I'm not going to do a huge introduction, but I will ask Adam if he could kind of introduce his office and what his office does, and perhaps ways in which his office engages with the public, both, you know, the public initiated contacts and what his office helps to manage. So Adam, thank you for being here. I put your name and your office in the chat.
Great, thanks, Ken. So I'm Adam Lehman. My title is Stream Specialist. I work for the Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District, and we do a range of things, all things conservation, really. But my role there is I'm basically I manage a stream conservation program, and it's got several legs, right? And so I do several things. I'll tell you about it, but you know, as far as what I'm responsible for on all your guys' problem, the answer is none of it. But I know a lot about it, and I know a lot of people who are involved with all of it, and I'm a great resource and happy to help. So my program basically consists of, you know, a watershed management portion where I help with watershed planning and implementing restoration projects. And those are mostly kind of geared towards, you know, restoration of biology for conservation, but also looking at excessive stream bank erosion problems and flooding and how all of that can be kind of managed in a holistic manner. The other side of that is public education and involvement. That's part of our municipal storm sewer system permit that we help the Stormwater District, the Hamilton County Stormwater District, implement. And the last part of this is consultations, free consultations to local landowners having various problems. And I'm going to go over that in detail as to, you know, some of it will be me, some of it will be other people, but we can get your questions answered and help you to figure out exactly, you know, what the problem is, who's responsible, and what can or cannot be done to address it. Real quick, other parts of the Soil and Water Conservation District, though. I mentioned public education and involvement. You know, we've got kind of other folks that lead some of those efforts as well. We're real active in like school education programs as well. We do for the Stormwater District. I mentioned the Hamilton County Stormwater District. Several different agencies come together to help fulfill those permits for the townships and for other municipalities that have joined that district. And so some of the things that we do are public education involvement, and we also have a significant sediment and erosion control, a pre-construction sediment and erosion control program. And so we actually have a department that regulates construction sites that are over 1 square mile and helps to keep that sediment on site and out of the streams. We're also there. That program is also responsible for some hill slope regulations. You know, they monitor landslides in the county. So it's kind of a diverse mix of things. And I think one of the messages that we're going to continue to hear today is that all of these problems are very interrelated, and And that's why it's hard to figure out who to talk to. It's not because we're all so convoluted that we can't get our act together. It's just that these are very complicated, interconnected problems, and we're all trying to work together to solve things that are connected to each other in separate jurisdictions, right? So I think that covers, who I am in the district. Any other questions, Ken, before I kind of start going in?
So you mentioned, I think it's good to connect that idea of, the landscape is changing. There's more impervious surface, right? So there's buildings and pavement that is creating more flow from the rain. That's a big general problem. Restoring streams and putting in green infrastructures are ways to hold back the water and keep the water soaking in and giving it a chance to soak in rather than just running downstream and into some of the combined sewers and out of the sewers and into people's yards, right? So that's the whole interrelated nature of this. And am I correct when I said the stormwater utility is the overland portion and MSD is responsible for what is in those combined sewers? Is that a division?
I would frame it as the owner operator of the infrastructure is responsible for that infrastructure, right? And so the first thing to separate there is, maybe that's a good enough way to separate it. So MSD owns the sanitary sewers, right? They are the owner operator of those sanitary sewers. They also own combined sewers that are sanitary and stormwater sewers, right? But both of those pipes go to the treatment plant, right? And so they own and operate that. It's their infrastructure. And so that's why, that is why, a federal judge issued a consent decree mandating that they are going to be implementing all these programs and spending so much money on addressing that problem because it's their property, and so they're liable for it. Other folks own other things, right? So stormwater sewers that have nothing to do with the sanitary line that collect water and outlet into a stream have a variety of different owners. There are private property owners. And by the way, there are private owners of sanitary lines, like under your house in your front yard, right? If your sanitary lateral gets damaged or clogged or something in your front yard, chances are that's on you to fix because that's part of your infrastructure on your property, right? But once that lateral ties into MSD's infrastructure, then it's their problem to deal with. And the same goes with stormwater stuff, right? So, and it can kind of vary, sometimes, entire housing developments are created. And so you'll have private lines or in industrial or commercial areas, you'll have private lines going along private roads, right? And so that's going to be a time where if you're dealing with a problem associated with a certain type of infrastructure, I'm kind of going to go over the different folks that you talk to for different problems, but you're going to call us and you can just start with the Soil and Water Conservation District. We'll get you to the right place, but you need to figure out who owns that pipe, right? And so, yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that helps, I think.
Question, sorry. I did hear you say that there is the free consultation for probably complex issues. So how do we access that?
I'm going to, hopefully, if we have time, I'm going to go through a quick checklist of the types of problems that folks call about and who you can talk to about it. But short answer is call the Hamilton County Soil.
Yeah, I heard you say that you guys would come out. It might not be you, but you'll do a free consultation for people that, are like, I don't know what's going on. I have a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, and so
I didn't know what the phone number was or what the actual,
Oh, sure.
address, department. mailing
So-
address? Listen, I'll send you a letter. I'll knock on the door. I don't care. Just let me know how to
You
do it.
can call our office at
Okay.
772-7645. And we'll get you to the right place.
So
But,
what
you
should
know,
I ask for? Because I know that it sounds,
No.
understandable between you and I, but when I call on the telephone, I talk to, Jane, whatever, the receptionist, and I explain that I'm looking for the free consultation for, my complex watershed issues or whatnot. She's probably going to say, I don't know how to help you. So what should I
No,
ask
we-
for?
we get a lot of these, right? That's why I'm telling you that we're the ones to call, because we do this a lot.
If I
And
ask
so,
for a,
yeah, anyone at our office is going to, they might not know who you need to talk to if it's outside our office, but they'll know who inside our office to get you in touch with to get an answer.
okay, I'm just a little cynical because I've been, bouncing around the city offices. for
I'm
a
used to
while.
that cynicism,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's
I
understandable.
apologize. Yeah.
I hear your
I tried to call AT&T this week and it didn't work out very well for me either. So we all understand that cynicism of getting bounced around.
Yeah. I hear your frustration, Noel. I want Adam to be able to finish, and then we'll come up with, see what questions we have left.
Yeah, Adam, you were gonna perhaps discuss a couple major problems and then how to maybe proceed or who to contact.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know how much time I have, so let me just jump into that, because there are, like I said, we get a lot of these calls, and we are in constant contact with other agencies that are dealing with this, because we're calling them, we're sending folks around to where they need to go. And so this is the category of stuff that I see. And I think that it's going to be fairly inclusive because, we, like I said, we get a lot of this, but maybe your situation's unique and we'll help you figure it out. But so the first, let me start off with reminding people of my point about, the owner of the infrastructure is responsible. So all of this is not about sewer overflows, right? The answer is MSD. If it's sanitary or a combined sewer that's backing up in your homes or in your neighborhood, that's MSD. And, these are structural problems with inadequately, sized and designed. I shouldn't say they were adequately designed at one point, right? But maybe not anymore, to Ken's point about the ongoing development. But that's nothing that we can do anything about, right? We're all kind of struggling through this, and MSD's spending tons of money, and we can all argue about how it should be spent or if it's enough. But at the end of the day, those are the folks you got to talk to for an overflow problem. There's a range of other things that are connected to stormwater, right? I mentioned landslides. Right? Because, heavy rains, it can induce landslides, and that's us. That's Hamilton County Soil and Water Conservation District. We shouldn't touch an earthworks technically. You have that. So stream pollution, right? Sometimes people will notice fish kills or see someone dumping something somewhere. That's going to be the health department, right? If you're in a township or a jurisdiction that's in the stormwater district, that's going to be Hamilton County Public Health. If you don't know if they're in the stormwater district, call us and we'll figure it out for you. If it's in the Cincinnati, it's probably going to be the Cincinnati. Log jams, right? So a bunch of logs back up on a culvert and cause local flooding problems. Well, it's going to be the owner of that pipe who's responsible for maintaining that infrastructure, likely, or maybe what property it's on, depending on how the property lines are drawn. We'll help you figure that out. You can call us, but we're going to probably push it either the township or Hamilton County Planning and Development, or the city, whoever owns that infrastructure. Sewer infrastructure in general, other problems can arise. Drainage problems, and if there's a pipe involved, it might be yours and you don't know it. It might be a county or a township or a municipal pipe. We'll help you figure it out. So just start with us. I think we're the best folks to start with. General drainage problems, right? So the district, the conservation district, kind of steps in when the issue of ownership of infrastructure is gone, right? So, you know, I just have a drainage problem. The developer shaped my property strange, and you know, my neighbor did this and it's coming onto my property, and I got a big pool and I don't know what to do. So the Soil Water Conservation District, we just step in and kind of handle all that stuff. So we'll typically send, we will send someone else out there. The answer, you know, we'll be especially enthusiastic about helping you if you're interested in implementing some sort of best management practice to solve the situation. But you know, even if not, we're going to give you, you know, a lot of advice about, you know, what the options are. I think there's a good part where I'm plugging, you know, our willingness to help on all of these things, to just manage expectations and just let y'all know we have no money, right? We come bearing lots of advice and experience and no checks. So sorry. Stream bank erosion, that's me, right? A lot of people have streams in their backyard. We all know about how stormwater is causing flashy flows that are just tearing these streams apart, and people are losing property over it, right? So I'm your guy for that. Flooding, a regularly flooding yard is a tough nut to crack, right? Because we're talking about an entire watershed above you, right? So there's limited solutions often that we can give you, but I have certainly come up with workable solutions that have solved folks' flooding problems in the past, and am eager to talk with folks about it. So those are some kind of the major categories that we get calls about. If anyone has like questions that they don't think fit into those, you know, I'd be glad to entertain that.
But you would, so if somebody called you with a general question or a complaint, or just frustrated about who to go to, you would take a look at their situation and then reference where they need to go.
Absolutely. That's one of our key parts of our mission. That's one of the cornerstones of what we do.
Okay.
Would you advocate further if they felt like they weren't being heard when they reached out to the department that you felt was the best for them to communicate with?
I don't know about if I would not use the word advocate, right? So if there is another department that it's their infrastructure and they're responsible for it, and it's causing you problems, and you know they're not going to do something because of prioritization or anything else, you know, we got no control over that. We can tell you that, you know, who's responsible for it and what needs to be done, but you know, we're not going to be standing on a picket line, I guess I'll say.
Yeah. You don't have enforcement capabilities.
No, we do not. Unless it's a construction site that's not implementing sediment and erosion controls, we have no enforcement
Okay.
capacity. I will mention one other thing that we do that I failed to, and that is we do have some enforcement regulations when it comes to agricultural pollution abatement, but that's probably outside the scope of this discussion.
Okay. So we do have, it looks like 2 more minutes. I'm curious about detention basin renovation, because it looks like our detention basin was made in 1996. And from what I've heard through somebody in the planning department is the regulations have changed, and that if that detention basin was built today, it would need to be a little different. And it seems to me it could be a source of flooding downstream. So is that something that happens? I mean, has the regulations for detention basins changed over the years?
Absolutely. So ask, what do you feel that a detention basin ought to do? And that's changed, right? In the past, a detention basin was for mitigating flooding, and that's it, right? And so flooding was defined typically by a 10-year event. And it did nothing beyond that, because everything smaller than a 10-year event just went straight out that pipe at the bottom that was sized to get that water out of there as fast as possible, unless it was a giant flood. So when we're talking about large flooding events, they're all great. They all work just exactly like they should. And I would say there's no deficit. One major thing that has changed in the regulations is they are now required to be designed in a manner that improves water quality, basically keeping sediment, out of the stream. So that's one major improvement that has come. And I would say that there's probably some mitigation of smaller floods associated with that, just on a landscape scale. If you think about, having wetlands and things like that, little bits of detention here and there, that's good for downstream flooding. But one of my main concerns is kind of rampant stream bank destabilization in the county, and both their impacts on people and on real estate, but also on the biology, which is kind of, my niche and my passion. And so for that, they could absolutely be required to be designed in a way that protects streams so that they're not excessively eroded. And currently we don't have those regulations. It's not just us, it's pretty much no one. Although I will say we got a great model across the river from our partners at SD1 in Northern Kentucky. They have a great model regulation that could really help that going forward. Of course, that's just, that stops future problems, but we're a highly developed county, right? So we have a wound to heal before we worry too much about stopping the little bit of bleeding that's happening now. And so I do a lot of work doing retrofits to just reconfigure the outflow structure a little bit. People don't even know we were there when we're done. And that just kind of holds these smaller rain events back a little bit longer and releases them in a more slow, controlled rate, with the purpose of reducing the frequency of these kind of flashy, erosive flow events in the stream. So that's an important tool that we try to advocate for a lot.
Does that tool help with saturation, the soil saturation? We're having a lot of problems with, yes, just excessive saturation that causes, sinkage of foundations, stuff like that.
Well, we want the water to infiltrate into the ground rather than run off into the stream. So we hope it increases saturation inside that detention basin, right? But, we're not talking about the area that is, delivering drainage to that detention basin. Those properties aren't affected, right? Because we have to maintain that basin's capacity to convey or to withhold back flooding, right? So the things that we do basically just make water stay in the detention basin for a little bit longer after small rain events. It might stay filled up for 24 hours as opposed to 12 when we're.
I guess what I was saying is like the properties surrounding the basin may have excessive soil saturation. It might affect the foundation. And I just didn't know if that was something that was accounted for. I feel like we're trying to make sure that every, all of the aspects of the project are just, people are being mindful of everyone.
I mean, if there was if your water table, the groundwater was like seeping out of your yard, and we're like, implementing something like that right next to it, I suppose it's feasible that it could have a problem, but that's not what happens. right?
Oh, that's
If-
what
if-
happened to me. So I'm gonna call you. That's great. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
great.
What I will
Noel,
mention, what
I
I
think
think
you-
is more common is that people have poorly draining soils. Rather than the water coming up from the bottom and not, but it's just the water that comes down from the top doesn't drain down very fast. And a detention basin retrofit would have no effect on that.
I'd like to see if there's some other questions. And I'd also like to know, Christine, about how long does your infrastructure or your green infrastructure talk go for?
Yeah, I think I planned it to be, half, so it was like 10 minutes. But, some of the introductory information, that's pretty fast. So, and then I have about, 11 different types. So we
Okay.
could go as long as you want, just stop. Stop
Okay.
to,
Great. I'd like to open it up for other questions and then maybe go until maybe have the last 15 minutes, have 15 minutes of questions. And then maybe we can look at the green infrastructure. Is that
Mhm.
okay?
yeah,
Right.
that would be fine. And,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Are there other questions? From how about the phone people that are here on phone calls? Does anybody on a phone have a question?
I do,
This is Darlene.
yes.
Okay,
I was listening to what Adam was saying. This is what I understand that the city went into all the communities to put in these pipes underground to reduce the flooding from people's homes, okay? Okay, now in North Fairmount, they also put in these bio wells. That was supposed to help reduce the flooding as well from people's homes. So when we have an overflow of water, this bio well is supposed to catch all this overflow of water. Then when then it's supposed to recede out into the Mill Creek. But we've been having so much rain that I see now the sewers are filling up again because I see all this debris. It always seems like it sits right in front of my house, but I see it all in the street. So is there we still having problem?
I don't know where you are.
North
and I don't
Fairmount.
know- Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't, that's not necessarily gonna mean a whole lot to me unless I'm looking at a map, but yeah, you're gonna be having problems, right? This is a highly urbanized area, and I think I'm not familiar with the projects that you're talking about. It sounds like
Well,
they've been implementing some green infrastructure projects. Was that part of the consent decree program?
I think
Well,
it's
that's
part of the
what-
Lick Run project.
Oh, okay.
No, well, that was in South Fairmount. I'm in North Fairmount, okay? So, but you mentioned it, Adam, about the city they were getting fined by the government because they had to go in to replace all these pipes because the people were having flooding in their homes. But we also was still having a problem, so they put in bio wells in our community. And that's supposed to catch the overflow of the water. But I'm still seeing problem as far as, because we done had a lot of rain just the past couple of days. And I'm still seeing water coming up out of the sewers as far as all this debris. So I see it in front of my house. But is that still coming from the problem for MSD, or would that be coming because that water from the bio well is supposed to be running out to the Mill Creek?
Well, if it's a dry well, which I'm guessing that's what it is, or maybe it's a bioretention or retention cell, like a rain garden.
It's not a rain garden. It was just they put in those bio wells to catch the water because of the flooding we were having. But I'm still seeing and North Fairmount is also it's hills. So it's a lot of hills out here. We have a lot of steps as well.
Darlene, it sounds to me like maybe you need to give Adam a call and somebody would need to come and see what is going on. and
Oh,
direct.
Yeah, that free consultation, and we can all kind of let everybody know how that works out. Because
Right.
I think that
Okay.
regardless, if there's something coming out of the sewer, my whole entire sewer came out of the ground. There's a giant pipe sticking out of the ground. The manhole cover blows off all the time. We pay a lot of taxes and this costs a lot of money. I think that we're just concerned not only for our issues for our own house, but just it feels a little dangerous,
Yeah, Noelle, there's some other people that have questions, so I don't want to interrupt, except I need to. So
I will just point out quickly that recall that the one thing that we can't really help with is overflows, right? I mean, that's the infrastructural problem that we just can't fix. That's MSD's
backups
problem,
I know
right?
why
And
we
so if you
say-
have other related problems that are exacerbating it, we might be able to help. But if the
Noelle,
problem is there's water backing up out of a sewer, there's nothing I can do.
yeah, Noelle, he
I
needs
feel
to
for you. It's hard.
have that consultation. And, but some more people have questions coming up. So if you, I know that Russ Doyle has a question, and also Jean Hall. And Jean, you need to, you're on the phone. You need to press *6 to, there you go.
I'm sorry. You said
Yeah.
I need to do what?
You did it. You're unmuted now.
Okay.
We hear you.
Y'all
What's up?
ready for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just last night, I was driving after the rain stopped, and I seen the ravine, the stormwater ravine over here on Mitchell. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
No?
Y'all know that?
I'm not going to know anywhere. I'll
Okay,
say
it's a
I live in
creek.
Butler County.
It goes all the way over to north side.
Uh-huh.
It's a creek that goes all the way over to the north side. Well, there's a little stormwater ravine that collects all the water, And I mean, that thing was filled all the way up to the street level last night. So I know.
Yeah. Well, is your question?
Question is why?
Yeah.
I think she got disconnected is what just
Oh.
happened there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll
let's
just say
move
that
on.
last night, at least the one rain gauge location I looked at, we got 1.5 inches of rain in a very short amount of time. So let me just say that every piece, every pipe, everything that is designed in our urban environment is designed for, specific sized events, right? So, we design so that nothing floods over, unless it's a 10-year event or something like that, right? But as far as just streams just blasting and kind of like backing up behind pipes, unless it's like flooding infrastructure, I think maybe that's to be expected in very large rain events, right? A 2-year event is 3 inches over a 24-hour period. So when I say 1.5 inches, you might say that's not much, but I mean, that happened in like an hour, right? So that was a lot of rain. I don't know if there was that much where you're at. I looked at a rain gauge for Deer Park this morning, and it was a lot.
Okay, Russ, do you have a question?
Yes, the only project I know is Lick Run. So I got a Lick Run question. When that was a combined, assumingly that was a combined sewer. Now, assumingly they took the sewage out and separated it, and now we have that nice park and drainage, assumingly for the stormwater. So I think I know that MSD takes over the sewage. Who's taking over the park?
So let me just couch this by saying I don't work for MSD and I'm not an expert on Lick Run, but I do have an understanding of the project. So, it was a combined sewer area. It was one of the worst in Cincinnati. They spent a lot of money on this project because it was one of the worst overflowing areas. So they didn't take the sewage out, they took the stormwater out was the goal, right? So they had this pipe that had sewage and stormwater going to it. And so they implemented all these projects to get the stormwater that was flowing into that pipe and put it up onto that new stream that they have built that park around. And so that stream and that park, in my understanding, and I don't know this for certain, I think that entire area is owned and operated and managed by MSD, right? So they have rain gardens and things they built all over the place, and they own those. Those are their assets. They have to manage and maintain them. And I'm sure the same is true for that channel, right? And I'm not sure about, that entire park area or not.
Do you think that's, I'm after that, when you got a combined sewer, I know they do the sewage, but I don't know who does the stormwater. So just like you're saying about Lick Run, the MSD's keeping jurisdiction is what I'm hearing you say.
So recall that it's not, is it stormwater or is it sanitary water? It tends to fall over that lines, but it's who owns that infrastructure, right? You own it, then you have to maintain it. Just like if you own your house, you have to maintain it, right? So MSD built that infrastructure, it's theirs. They have to maintain it. Stormwater too.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I had any other questions? I had one.
Gene, this is Gene again. I'm sorry, my phone dropped the call. Okay, I was just stating about the ravine last night that I seen was so full of water, all the way up to street level. So I come to a conclusion why my backyard is being impacted so badly is because all the water lines, sewer lines, run down under my house from several blocks of street. So the main sewer line runs to my house on my property, right in my backyard. Once it hit my backyard, the manhole sewers are already backed up, clogged up, and they all cracked up. So therefore, that's how all that water from the city, rain, stormwater, that's how all of it has backed up into these manholes, and it has nowhere to go. So it's shooting out in my yard.
Right, and that is the big problem that MSD is being charged to fix over many years. It's a very difficult problem to fix. It requires an enormous amount of money, but that is happening. There are, I think, 30 or 40 sites at least where that happens when there's a big rain. And that is the nature of the main problem. I think what we're also hearing from some of the other questions is when MSD fixes one of those problems, sometimes there are other problems that are created, right? I think Noel has one of these other problems. There's a detention basin that's helped the main problem of the overflows, but that has perhaps created other flowing problems of stormwater. And that's where, like Russ said, the jurisdiction, is in question. Because if you read MSD's website, they say we're only responsible for the combined sewers and sanitary sewers. Well, some of their projects are having dramatic effects on stormwater. They're fixing the main problem, but there's these other problems that are having real impact on some of the homeowners, right? So that's it's a very complicated problem. But, Gene, you're not alone. This is happening in a lot of places across Cincinnati.
There's I do see another question and Gene, you might want to call for that free consultation at the stormwater management. I mean, not stormwater management, at the where Adam is, the Hamilton County Soil and Conservation. I don't know if you've already tried them yet. I know you've had people out
No.
there, but this might be somebody who can connect all the dots.
Jackie, also, did she report that to MSD?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
One thing that I'll say about this is we gotta, I'm not 100% sure that what she's describing is an overflow. If it's coming out of a manhole, it's an overflow. If you have a large pipe that's discharging into a stream by your house, that could be something else. And if you give me a call and you give me your address, I can look it up on the map and tell you real quick what's likely going on.
Okay, his phone number is in the
address?
Well, you don't need to share your address in the public meeting here, but you can call me at I'm blanking on my phone number, but it's in here.
So I got it, and I'll make sure Jean gets it. Yeah.
Okay, great. There is, Rigel has a question about, in the chat about, is there, at what point do we rethink what defines a 10 or 20 year or 100-year event? Is there a process for that? And I don't know whether that would be for Chris and Adam both.
I mean, obviously, we're getting larger events more frequently. So is the 2-year event statistically happen on average every 2 years anymore? Probably not. But in the same breath, like, you know, these events that engineers use to design everything, they're all like based on this distribution of rainfall over 24 hours. And I'll at least say that they're very conservative in that they have these huge peaks where lots of water is falling all at one time. And so, you know, it's a complicated question, but should it be revisited? Yeah. And I'm sure lots of people are revisiting that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Chris. I was going to say, you know, some people might say that this is like a normal, you know, variance, and that you've actually got what you had was like a, you know, 1,000-year rain or event that happens once in 1,000 years. But there is, I would imagine, an engineering body that set those originally, that might look at it, but it's pretty much worked into everybody's infrastructure, so it might be a hard thing to change.
It's worth mentioning anecdotally that I've worked for the district for 5 years, and I've seen a couple 100-year events and multiple 50-year events in 5 years.
I'm wondering,
but, you know, that's distributed over a whole county, so, you know, not just one point on the map, but it's you know, an anecdote.
I thought maybe the EPA's research and development program might be.
You know,
that's like the Civil Engineering Association.
Yeah, but you know, that's something I'm looking up on my phone right now, and I'm seeing like some kind of vitamin. So I would probably have to look around, but it's something we can look up and see, you know.
Well, and the only reason I'm asking is MSD is doing work now. They're reconfiguring the sewers now. And if they're basing those capacities on the idea of what a 100-year or a 20-year event looked like before, it seems like we're missing an opportunity.
Yeah, it would depend.
I will say in general, go ahead.
I was just going to say that generally, like they would probably be looking at the precipitation events, and they would go back a certain amount. Like we used to say that 20 years was, you know, a good amount of data, but if they have been seeing a trend, and I know that one of our sanitary districts did a study on this. They found that the precipitation had increased over the last 10 years. And so if they have done any studies like that, then that might be interesting to see, because, you know, then they might not take the record as far back when they're calculating those detention ponds, and the volume is really what, you know, they need to be aware of. The volumes that they have even if you're designing for 7Q10, if that's not working, you know, you need to get a handle on what the additional volume is. And then you can look at the flows that you've had in recent years, but.
Okay.
Well, and I think it could be relevant and a good opportunity because I did see the city and the county both have, you know, some money delegated toward infrastructure. And, you know, if we're able to make aware of the problems that are arising with the water, so we don't have, you know, sinkholes or flooded roads, you know, we might be able to get some actual, you know, help or funding to be able to make improvements.
I'm wondering, Christine, if you would be able to come back for our Stormwater Management 102 with the green infrastructure sometime in September.
Yeah, I'd love to. Or, you know, we have a stormwater actual coordinator who couldn't make it today. So, but you know, I would do whatever I could do to help. And I would, you know, if you'd like to see what I put together, some of the information I have, the different types of green infrastructure. They actually, on EPA's website, next to each one, they have like maybe 2 to 4 case studies. So, you know, you ask about case studies, I was going to point out that, you know, they have like Minneapolis and all different cities all over the country, case studies on green infrastructure for each one. And for each one of these things, like porous pavement, so you could see where it's been successful. So, you know, and I'd be happy to talk a little bit about that if that's the topic that you want.
Right. That, I think that would be fascinating to see what other cities have successfully done. Mm-hmm. And see what's going, compare it to what's happening here somewhat.
So I think part of the problem though is that MSD is negotiating, like Rigel was saying, what they're going to do between the city, the county, the EPA for phase 2 of, you know, the next 5 or 10 years of projects to fix the combined sewers and separate the stormwater out. And they're really not involving the community in that in any way. So they're really not getting much, if any, feedback from the community. You know, in Noel's case, that project, they came in, they said, this is what we're going to do. Do you have questions? And it wasn't a cooperative sort of process at all. They have done a good job with that in some cases, like Lick Run is an example of that. But you know,
I would like to see what Christine has to say about other cities. And I don't think we have time, and whether they had community involvement or not, but I don't think we have time tonight to get into that because we only have 9 more minutes, according to my.
Yeah, and I do know that there are meetings that EPA currently still meets with with the topic of the consent decree with the city. I think that it probably doesn't move as quickly as court and those types of negotiations don't always move as quickly as people would need. I mean, I know there's an urgency here, but I can also try and get some kind of an update on, how that is going. I was thinking maybe that there would be somebody from the city that would be able to do that, but unfortunately, our person who normally attends some of those meetings, his wife went into labor early, so he missed the last meeting they had. So I didn't, have anything to update. But
well, we're planning on having the director of stormwater at the next meeting. So if that would probably be a good combination. I don't know if somebody from MSD would be able to come. They weren't able to come at this time. So maybe they'll be joining us also. Or we'll have Stormwater 103, Stormwater Management 103 down the pike.
That'll be the engineers who reset the, the 7Q10s or the, 7-day flows or whatever. So we'll get them.
But we do want to try to end on time. And we do want to try to get to all the questions anybody would have. And so please put them in the chat. There was one initially, it was mine, I think it was Christine, because you mentioned that they had to either end CSOs or decrease the elimination. And so what is an acceptable elimination, and is that safe for public contact?
Okay, so I'm not going to speak for what is in the consent decree of Cincinnati, but my understanding is that really the goal is to continue to decrease them as much as possible. So there's, I mean, you know, really the goal is zero, but you know, obviously that is not, from your experience, it's not an easy solve, and so that they, you know, generally they try to get it as much as possible. And, you know, there is a possibility, you know, they could always, I think that, you know, if there may be more actions, I'm not saying that in this case, but it's a work in progress because of the time and the complexity of solving the problem. Because, you know, you might, as you said, you might have some problems that turn up because of one of the solutions you have. So it's such a complex system. You know, the goal is to, as much as possible, to reduce.
Okay.
But they, when they do some kind of an action, they will, you know, they allow a certain amount in the interim.
Okay. So if there's any other questions, please put them in the chat. If you're on the phone and you can't put them in the chat, please call CUFA and let us know that you have a question that didn't get addressed, because we're going to continue to try to get everybody's questions asked and answered. So we want to thank Chris and Adam for coming. And it's been a pleasure. And to contact CUFA if you want to give us a question. Oh, Allison, can you put the CUFA phone number and website in there? We don't have an exact date yet, but it's coming up and you can check it there. The next steps we're going to do is on Thursday, July 29th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. We're just going to get together and strategize and talk about how we can win better stormwater management. Also, if you have a note on MSD's sewer backup program, if you have experienced the backup, you need to call in 48 hours after discovery, not after the event, but after you discover the event. And at MSD, you can call 532-4900, 24 hours a day or 7 days a week, or you can submit it online at the SBU, I guess, sbu.msdgc.org/SBU. It'll be on the MSD website for sewer backup. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. We have 2 minutes. We can say
it looks like Miss Miller has
I mean, this is Florence, and I'd just like to also thank Mike Sedlacek. I hope I'm pronouncing your name somewhat close, you know, for also being with us this evening. You know, I hope you can come back again, you know, with our next presentation, you know, and present more information for all of us, because we learned quite a bit tonight. So
yeah, obviously we could have gone on, but this is an hour and a half is is enough for one time. So,
Well, thank you
thanks,
for the
everybody.
opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for listening. It's
Yeah,
Thank you
all
again
you
for
know,
having us.
issues of a bigger issue, right? So it's difficult to communicate that.
So, and I
Happy-
just will say too, really quickly, because Christine did not get to share the green infrastructure ones. She sent them to us and we will put them up with the recording of today.
Mhm.
Chris, does that have the examples of what other cities are doing?
It
Or-
does. It does. Well, it has the links to them in the, I actually put together kind of more like a handout. And so it has links to those. So if you receive it electronically, you should be able to. If not, I also put together some slides and there's the website in there. So,
Okay,
but either way, that information is accessible on the green infrastructure page for EPA. And I think they talk about the elements of green infrastructure, which they mean the individual type, like rain gardens and things. So each one has some links to case studies, and some of them are quite big, like Milwaukee and other places that have similar, well, CSOs. So,
mhm. Okay,
okay, thank
well,
you.
thank you.
And have a happy 4th of July.
Yes, everyone, have a good weekend.
You.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.